Una de las cosas que más disfruto de mi trabajo es conocer a mujeres que están haciendo cosas distintas, rompiendo paradigmas y llevando su creatividad al límite. Y de eso va el episodio de hoy, de una mujer que encontró en la creatividad una válvula de escape para proponer piezas únicas, pero también para protestar y para fascinar a las personas que siguen su trabajo. La creatividad no nace, se hace. Y hoy intentaremos entender por qué. Nicole McLaughlin es una diseñadora multidisciplinaria de 29 años que reside en Brooklyn, Nueva York. Nacida en Nueva Jersey, hija de un carpintero y una diseñadora de interiores, McLaughlin elabora ingeniosas piezas recicladas a partir de bienes de consumo reutilizados y materiales cotidianos que revitalizan y les otorgan un nuevo significado. Y a la vez desafían a enfrentarse al ciclo cada vez más acelerado del consumo excesivo y los desperdicios. Con más de 700,000 seguidores en Instagram y 120,000 en TikTok, Nicole ha utilizado su plataforma para educar y asociarse con firmas y organizaciones sin ánimo de lucro. Ha colaborado con Hermes, con Gucci y junto con marcas como Puma, eBay y Jansport, ha recaudado miles de dólares para un sinfín de organizaciones, como Women Win, Slow Factory Foundation, Innocence Project, entre otras. ¿Por qué nos cuesta tanto trabajo conciliar nuestra parte vulnerable con nuestro poder? ¿Cómo manejar el trancazo de la adultez? ¿Qué significa ser mujer hoy? Lo dije muy falso, ¿no? Está en ti agarrar las riendas de tu vida y salir de tu zona de confort. Desde atreverte a cumplir tus metas hasta aprender de quienes no son como tú. Yo soy Romina Sacre y te doy la bienvenida a Sensibles y Chingonas, un podcast donde se vale hablar de todo, sin miedo a ser diferentes. Nicole, I'm so excited to have you here. I have to tell you something. This is my first English interview.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very nervous. I might say some words that don't make sense in English, but I'm going to try to do my best. So welcome to Sensibles y Chingonas.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I am a New York Times subscriber, and that was the first time I heard about you. And I read your story. I found it very impressive, very inspiring. But how did you started exploring with recycled materials?
So it started for me a couple years ago. I started my career in corporate fashion, doing footwear and fashion graphic design. And so it was during that time that I started to see the amount of waste within the fashion industry, the amount of samples that were being produced. So there was always like so much swatches and samples around the office. And so I just wanted to see if I could find a way to use it. So I would collect them and keep them under my desk and take it home. And I had no fashion experience. I didn't go to fashion school. So I just thought, like, maybe if I glue them or, staple them or just find a way to use this material for something, it could kind of push me in a new creative direction. So that's what I did with no sewing experience. And I learned as I went. And then now I'm just in love with using old stuff or stuff that's meant to be thrown away or in the trash.
No, and I saw your Instagram and oh my God, it's so cool. Everything you do is like a piece of art. I don't even think I would wear it. I'm like, oh no, I'll probably just put it on my wall. I'll find a piece of glass and I'll just have it there so people can watch it.
Oh my gosh.
Did you ever thought that you would end up doing this big collaborations with Gucci and Hermes and all the other brands that you work with?
No, I never thought that would have been possible. I just really thought I was doing it for fun. And I only put it on social media to show my friends or family. And I had nobody was watching. And then all of a sudden, thousands of people and hundreds
now the
of thousands
world is
of
watching.
People. And I was like, oh my God, I have to, it was a weird pressure of maintaining the reason why I started and having fun, but then also being able to, perform for this audience that's watching. And so it's been a cool balance of figuring that out. But I love what you said though about it being art, because some people think it's very much art and then some people it's very much fashion. So it's cool that it sits in between.
I think it's a really cool mix. Because there are some items that they're very well done. I can just appreciate it by the picture, but at the same time, I don't know how functional they are. Like I saw this thing that you did with like the Canon camera and was it Canon, right? Like it was like like a bikini.
Yes.
Can you wear that? Would you wear it?
So I don't wear my own stuff because it's just for me, I like to just make it. And then afterwards I actually take it apart and then I turn it into something else. But a lot of the stuff I make is functional and it's wearable. The only thing is I use a lot of food. And so I've made croissant bras and, you know, crazy bread pieces. And so afterwards, like they'll live just for the picture and then I kind of take them apart and then I'll eat it for lunch and then it's over.
I love it. Do you think creativity is like a muscle that you have to exercise or it just comes to you naturally?
Sometimes it's a bit of both. I definitely think it's a muscle. I think you need to work on it because, you know, it's something that could take time. It doesn't always just come to you super naturally. But also, I think sometimes if you do have a creative idea, you should act on it. You should try to make it come to life, even if it seems crazy or wild. Like some of my earlier creations, they came to me just, you know, being outside and walking around or looking at trash or whatever. And I got inspired and I was like, I have to go home and I have to make this. And I think a lot of the time we get inspired, but we don't really know how to make it come to life. And I think it's okay if you just do your best to make it feel possible or feel real. But it's something I work on every day. Like I'm always trying to sketch. I'm always trying to think of new ideas. And every project that I make inspires the next. So it's kind of this endless cycle of whether it's the material or the color or the shape that inspires me for the project. I'll just get inspired for the next project for it.
I love that you say that it takes time. I just published my second book.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Last May. And it's funny how it works. They're, you know, interviewing me about my new book. And the first thing they ask me is, what's your next book? And I'm like, we're talking about this one. Like, why don't we give like projects the time they deserve? And I'm pretty sure, and talking about this New York piece that I told you about, it gave you a lot of exposure and people are probably expecting a lot of you. Like, do you feel like you need to prove something to them or you just keep on doing what you've been doing for the past year and a half or 2 years?
I'd say for me, it did put a little bit of a pressure, but to be honest, I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing and it naturally evolves into the next thing. And I think it just gave me more support in what I'm doing, less like pressure to need to create more or do something like over the top, but more people being like, oh, how can I help you? Like, can I give you materials and can I, you know, put you in touch with somebody that will help, you know, fund your next project? And so I think that exposure helped me in a great way. And I felt really honored to have that. It also was like a really good one for my parents to see because they're like, oh, she's in the New York Times. She's legit now.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's the best feeling ever. Like just telling your parents, your dad and mom, thank you so much for the education you gave me. It's, you know, it's bringing success.
Definitely. Because it's hard to explain to their friends, like, yeah, my daughter makes bras out of Canon, you know, camera stuff. So I think it legitimized the operation of it.
Yeah. And your parents must be like, but look, she's very popular at this thing called Instagram. No?
Yeah, definitely. No, they get it now. But yeah, I think it was such an honor to have that article written. And it's just been an amazing ride ever since. It's just every time I have someone writing to me about my work, it's just it gets me more motivated to want to keep doing it.
Who has been an inspiration for you and for your work?
So in terms of inspiration, I'd say the most has come from my mom, actually. She's a designer and she does interior design for commercial spaces. So like offices and doctors' offices and stuff. And so my whole life, she was just such a good creative role model. She worked so hard and she was able to have kids and like balance her work life so well, but she always managed to like crush it as a woman in the design field. And so I think she's just been a huge inspiration for me. in that space. And then in terms of design, I'd say Tom Sachs is one of my favorite designers. And then for fashion, Mason Margiela for sure.
Yeah. I want to go back to talk about creativity. How do you put yourself into a creativity mindset? And I say creativity like really weird. Sorry, creativity. I don't know how to say it better. I just got very blushed.
No,
but how do you put yourself into this mindset?
So for me personally, I love to exercise, and I think a lot of people don't always connect the dots right away, but a lot of my work is inspired by the outdoors. It's inspired by technical clothing, so outerwear, jackets and stuff.
And you have a climbing wall at your office, right?
I do have a climbing wall. So for me, I think it could be like getting on the climbing wall or going outside for a walk or for a run. And that sometimes just kind of gets me feeling like loose and makes my head feel a little more clear, because it's really hard to force creativity. I think all creatives know it's like if you're sitting in a room with the notepad or at the sewing machine and you're like, with a blank canvas, like the possibilities are endless. And so I think it does help to get your mind kind of started. And I also love to give myself creative prompts that aren't always fashion related. So whether that is like painting or like, doing something on Illustrator or taking photos of nature, whatever it is, sometimes it helps to just start in a creative place, but not force what I'm trying to work on. And that helps inspire so many of my projects.
Yeah. Also because there's this idea that creativity just happens, no? Like this magical thing and also this very romantic idea, especially, for example, for writers like me, that you just sit down and, drink your coffee in the morning and then you just open your laptop and then words just start coming to you. It never happens like that. The way I wrote my last book and my first book is just, it's at airplanes, like in the middle of an Uber. You just have to get the work done. But at the same time, and I don't know what you think about this, but a lot of people have ideas. The problem is, how do you bring these ideas to life? And it can also be a very vulnerable process, and also it can be very scary at the same time, because people are just like looking at a way.
Definitely. I totally agree. And I think when inspiration does hit you, you have to act on it in whatever capacity. That's something I've learned for myself. And it's funny because last night, I haven't been feeling very creative because I've been traveling, I've been tired. And last night it was 1:30 in the morning, and I then start having all these ideas, and I was like, I just want to go to sleep. But then I just you have to kind of let your brain do its thing. But yeah, I think, what was the second part of your question? I missed it.
I'm sorry. I don't even remember what I asked you. I'm just thinking about everything you're saying.
Yeah.
But like the fact that it doesn't just happen. Sometimes it hits you and you have to take advantage of it. What I probably find it very useful for me, I have just a notebook on the side of my bed. And when I try to go to sleep, and sometimes my mind is just having this 2,000 ideas at the same time, I just write them down. And sometimes it does, some of them work, and sometimes some of them don't work. But I'll just leave them there, and probably at a certain point of my life, I can use them. That's the thing about being creative, that you don't have just one idea. You can have 1,000 ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something, at least in design, I always think is really interesting, and something I experience a lot, is I'll be working on a project and it's not going the right way. And I'll be halfway through it and I'm I don't like the way this looks. I'm making a pair of shorts. It's not fitting. The material is not working. So I'll put it aside for a while. And I've put projects aside for years. At this point, I've put projects that I started when I first started to learn how to make stuff, and I didn't have the skills. And then now I've picked it up and I'm oh, I know how to sew that. I know how to use that material now because I've had experience, and it comes back to you. And then either I finish it as a pair of shorts and that's done, Or I'm halfway through and I'm like, you know what, this would work better as a hat. And I start taking it kind of like in a different shape and start messing it around. And I don't know, something great can come out of that. So you just have to be ready to pivot. And then in terms of creative inspiration, at least within design, I find that paying attention to very mundane things in your life. So something very simple, cooking dinner for me. Mm-hmm. So when I'm peeling a carrot or I'm chopping something, I've made projects with a carrot peeler as a high heel before. And I took off the heel part and I used a carrot peeler. So I'm always like paying attention to the tools that I use in my life, or, you know, the modes of transportation that I'm taking, or something I might see outside. If I just like pay a little bit more attention. And I think we're so used to just rushing around all the time that we don't always take everything in. And it sounds very like, oh, you know, just, you know, open your eyes. But sometimes it is just slowing down, paying attention, and getting inspiration from some of the easiest stuff out there.
Totally. And connecting to nature. That I know you do all the time, because like what you said, you like to climbing and be outside, and you're like a very outdoors person. But yeah, when I feel stuck, I do that. I go out and take a walk with my dogs and just like leave for a little bit, like that thing that I'm doing. And then afterwards I can come back even better, and my mind is even fresher, and like I can, like ideas even like flow in a better way, and then you surprise yourself, which is like the best thing, no? Like there's like this feeling when you create something, and then you're like, oh my God, did I do that? Like that's great. Like are you like, how do I say this? I'm sorry, I forgot the word. But how do you uplift yourself? Like in those days that you're not feeling like your best, like what types of things besides what you just said? Is there like a ritual you have, like you do, or therapy, or I don't know, like what do you do in order to feel good with yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be a couple of different things. Definitely exercise, number one. I think a lot of the time we don't realize that our body like needs that, or even like drinking water. Sometimes when you're in such a creative state, you're not like always taking care of your body. So like going and having a snack, having some water, like sort of resetting. Sometimes it's as simple as that. But for a good creative inspiration for me, because this is what I do for a living, is going to a thrift store, and like not with any intention of not like buying anything. Like I'm not going there to buy clothes for me or for my projects. It's just simply going around to touch like materials, to touch fleece, to touch windbreakers, shoes. And sometimes it's just the tactile feeling of it that gets me excited, gets me like sparked on an idea. Because a lot of the time I already have all those things that I need in my studio. And I'm like, oh, I just needed to see it somewhere else. I just was so used to seeing it in my own room or the own context of my studio. And as soon as I went to a different place and looked at it, I was immediately inspired. So kind of funny how that works. I don't know how that would translate to in a writing sense, but maybe it's going to a bookstore. I don't know. But maybe.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, for example, I love to go to museums, and that's the way I connect, like seeing other things, like what are people doing? I do get inspired by the work of other people, like seeing people doing creative things that actually nourish me in so many levels, and I can create even better. But I have these really weird also periods of times when I don't have anything more to do. I just gave everything. Like right now I'm at this point of my life. Like I gave everything. Like I don't know what else I want to do next. And that's also a very interesting process, just to give yourself that moment of just like enjoy, and that's it. Like, not thinking about what's going next.
Yeah, I love that you said that too. Especially, I feel the pressure sometimes with social media because of that, because I feel like I can't take a break sometimes, and it's so hard to force being creative, and it comes off that way. It comes off as force if you're like, I need to post this day at this time. Like it becomes too predicted, and so I like to push myself sometimes to take maybe a month off of not posting, and it feels scary.
I saw that on your Instagram, that you have pictures like 2021. Like you don't have a lot of posts on your social, even though you have a lot of followers, but you don't post that often.
And that's the thing. Like I used to post, like I would make 3 projects a week, and I would try to post like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or like Monday, Thursday, Saturday. And I would be exhausted. And after like a year and a half of doing that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it's becoming like less exciting because I've just made so many things, and I've been like pushing myself to just create content. And it's less about creating the art or the piece and like the idea behind it. And it's more about just getting it out in time. And so, like you said, like I'll go, months without posting sometimes, and people kind of respect that. And I find that, if people don't want to stick around, they just want content, then they can go, they can leave. No one's forcing you to be there. But my followers who have been there since the beginning, they're always like, they could tell if I've taken a long rest, I'll come back with like even better ideas or, more exciting content. So
no, and in a way, you're sharing your creations, but you're not forced on, creating for them. Like people, sometimes they think that you owe them something, or that it's your responsibility to be surprising them like every single day with something that you do. And it's so tiring because you end up doing things not for yourself, but for them, for the, like waiting for how are people going to react or how are they going to respond. And it's a very tricky line. Like in a way, and the way I see it is that, of course, social media has a lot of good things, like a lot. It can connect you with people. It can give you that platform in order to people to know what you're doing. Like I created my whole business around social media. Like a lot of brands wouldn't even know about you if it wasn't for social media. But at the same time, there's this price that you have to pay. That sometimes I feel it. That it's kind of like it takes a lot out of you, and I totally admire that you said that you take your time off. I can't do that, and I would love to do that, and I would love to be just like, hey, see you in 6 months. I'm writing something new. Like, see, like I would love to do that. Like I would love to get to that point in my career that I don't have to be too attached to social media.
I think in general, like all of us should sort of think about that. And I think we've all become so like consumed by social media. And I do see actually quite a bit of a lag after like the effects of COVID, where we were all so addicted and like sitting in front of it. I almost feel like we all just kind of like, need that break. We need that refresh of like being in person with people and being outside again. And so I kind of also love to give people that space. And so I'm like, if I'm not providing them with content, then maybe that's one less person, and that will like hopefully encourage people to get outside or go be creative. I mean, that's the best part of social media for me, is finding young designers, like interesting people all over the world. And then so many like students and stuff have written to me being like, oh, like I've made my collection and it's an upcycled collection. I got into fashion and, have come to one of my workshops. That's been like the best part about it for me, is just seeing kind of the next generation of what fashion's going to look like. And that's inspired me a ton to continue with social media just to see what's going on.
Do you, you said something very interesting. Like, do you really think so that it's going to go on to that direction? Like being like brands being more conscious, that we can consume less, because, we all read the news. We can ignore climate change, but at the same time, we refuse to change our consuming habits. And I read this on the internet. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's true, but I'm just going to say like fashion production makes up 10% of humanity's carbon emissions, dries up water sources, and pollutes rivers and streams. What's more, 85% of all textiles go to dump each year. Like, how do you see it? Like, you're optimistic about the fashion world? Do you think they're taking it too slow? Do you think, what else can we do? Like, I don't, like at this point of my life, like I feel so anxious about everything that's happening in general, like in the world. But I don't see how things are going to change. Do you feel the same way? Or are you more optimistic about this?
It depends on the day for me, because some days I do feel really optimistic that there are going to be really amazing changes happening. And the more conversations I've had with some bigger brands and companies, I've seen a lot of really interesting stuff that's happening. It's just not happening very fast. And I've also had days where I just feel like completely overwhelmed and consumed by this like horrible future. And it's kind of a balance that I ride this line, especially within the side of the industry that I'm in, because I try to make projects that inspire people and to be able to use up as much wasted product as I possibly can to be able to show people, you know, what can these things be and what the future of these things could look like. But I know that I'm only one person, and that's a really optimistic way of doing it, is one of ones, or, you know, just making a one of a kind piece. It's not really solving this huge issue of, like you said, 85% of textiles ending up in a landfill. So, but it's hopefully encouragement for a bigger brand that has the money, that has the resources to take some inspiration and hopefully be able to do this at scale, and to be able to have these conversations openly and admit that, you know, things aren't heading in a good direction and we need to take responsibility. The thing that bothers me the most is that the responsibility is put on the consumers and has not always been, the bigger brands not taking responsibility for themselves and all the stuff that they've made for years and years and years. It becomes like, you buy it, now you have to figure out what to do with it, you know? And so it puts a lot of pressure on us. But the least that I feel like I can do is hopefully inspire somebody, or to teach someone in a workshop like I'm doing today, to teach people to be able to make stuff with their hands, get inspired by it, and continue to pass it on. So it's a hard industry though, for sure.
No, like everyone has a responsibility, like you said. Like, we cannot just blame big companies about everything that they've done. Like, we have to do something, but also the companies need to they need to make changes, and fast. Like, we cannot just wait 10 more years in order for them to say, oh, you know what, we realize we're not just going to, like, no. Like, it's now, like yesterday. And yeah. And sometimes it's too overwhelming. I try not to. I love to read the news. I'm a very well informed person, but at the same time, sometimes it's too much, and sometimes I just need to protect my mental health and, you know, do the best I can, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think like that's something I can just contribute to the world. Like, just be the best version I can be of myself.
For sure. I think that's the best way to say it too, because it can be really overwhelming, and it almost, like, the conversations around sustainability push people away from it because it just seems like it's too big of a problem to even tackle. Mm-hmm. So I like to put it in smaller, you know, actionable things that we can do. Like you said, doing your best, like, you know, buying less, consuming less, being more conscious about your purchasing decisions, like knowing if you're not going to maybe wear something more than once or twice, like, is it really worth making that purchase? So I think it's just really kind of rewiring the way that you think about your daily life. But again, like, really the pressure should be on these big companies who are producing all this stuff. And then the responsibility on us is more about, let's create less of a demand for all these things.
Mm-hmm. And talking about clothes, what are your favorite pieces that you have in your closet?
Oh, for me, the best pieces are stuff that I find thrifted, because I love the thrill of going into a thrift store. And I buy with two mindsets. I buy for what I'm going to wear for, you know, in my own wardrobe, but then I buy also for what I can then when I'm done wearing it, what I could turn it into a project later. So I buy it as a material, but I buy it so I'm like, okay, it can fit in my wardrobe, and then later it's a project. So that's the best piece ever for me. I love jackets. I love outerwear, anything that has like trim. So I look for things that have pockets, zippers, like bungee cords, stuff like that, because I can use that again for projects and I can take all the parts off of it and I don't have to go buy it because I already have it.
I love what you said. I'm going to quote you, but I'm constantly using my brain to figure out how to make something work. I love that quote of this. Like thinking the afterlife, you know, like I ended up using this, like what's next? And I love that. And just like last question, what piece of advice would you give to young Mexican artists?
Oh, I love that question. I mean, I think it's such a simple one, but I think I always love to say, if you have an idea and you have a strike of inspiration, act on it. Don't wait till you have all the right perfect tools, the perfect setting, all the things in your life. You will wait forever for that moment. And I find that so many young people or people that are just starting to create, they think they see all these like technologies and computers or sewing machines or whatever it is, the tools to be able to make something to be successful. And you don't need as much as you think you do. So work with what you have and you'll make it work, and then you'll get better and you will get the tools or the resources as you get, more experience. So do with what you have and make it work.
Nicole, thank you so much. It sucks that I didn't have the opportunity to meet you in person. I was supposed to go to dinner last night, but I'm in San Miguel de Allende, not in Mexico City. But if you come back to Mexico City, I would love to meet you. And if I go to New York, I'm definitely going to write you. I would love to go to your, I don't know how to say that word in English, to your now they're gonna make fun of me.
Studio.
Yeah.
No,
to the studio, so I can see
you can rock climb.
Yes. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on everything you're doing. You're such an inspiring person, and the best of luck.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Esto fue Sensibles y Chingonas. Síguenos en Instagram y Facebook como Sensibles y Chingonas. Y no olvides suscribirte a nuestro newsletter en sensiblesychingonas.com/newsletter.